This is it, you see, we're looking forward to this big interrogation showdown on Sunday with Anna Maxwell Martin's character and Adrian Dunbar, who plays Superintendent Ted Hastings. I think he has been the star of the series, actually, this time round. And we were all saying, no, at the end of last Sunday, we're not giving anything away. So we need to see, first and foremost, what happens to him at the weekend.
I saw a clip on Gogglebox, which is the only time I've seen any of Line of Duty. And so that must have been from the previous weeks. And something very horrible happened to somebody in that. And I was like, oh, God, that's very violent.
Oh, it's it's pretty gruesome, it has to be said. And as we've said previously, you are on the edge of your seat watching this. You have to give it the utmost concentration. Jed Mercurio, who writes this, how does he work all this out? Because this is the 5th series. It's referring back to a number of things that happened in the first series, 7 years ago. This was first broadcast. So it's incredible writing, great performances. We'll see. By 10:30 on Sunday night, I could be on the floor along with most of the nation, I think. But will we find out who H is? That's the question. Now, if you need something a little bit lighter after Line of Duty on Sunday evening, it's on at 10 o'clock, so you might need to flip over and catch the second half of this. I'm a bit of a transport geek, don't you?
Yes.
You have mentioned
Did you
it.
see Ben's posts on Instagram yesterday? All of the boats?
Yes.
Oh, he was so
a plethora
excited.
of vessels, I think he called it.
Well,
this is it, because we had the Ben McCree, the cruise ship, Mananin, Arrow, various other sort of boats floating around. I loved it. But this time, we're talking about transport in the air. There's a documentary, Sunday night, 10 o'clock, Channel 5. We know, as we've said, Channel 5 do a good old documentary, Easyjet, Inside the Cockpit. And
Beth couldn't watch that, could you?
Of course, you're not a great flyer, are you? So maybe you should watch this,
Maybe
actually, because
I
it
should,
sort of, shows you what the pilots do in their work. And it also, this documentary goes behind the scenes of some rookie pilots as well, and how they train, and they take them to the Alps and train them there and get them doing all sorts of things and put them through, obviously, sort of certain scenarios that might happen, scenarios we don't want to think about. But a fascinating insight behind the scenes as to what actually a pilot has to do in order to sort of get that top job. The training of it is absolutely fascinating. So yeah, Sunday night at 10 o'clock, Channel 5 for that.
Stu Peters is convinced I should go up with him in a light aircraft to cure my fear of flying, but I'm not convinced.
Would that cure it?
I'm not sure.
I'm not
I
sure
don't
it
know.
would, no.
Speaking of Channel 5 documentaries, just before we go on, there was one last night inside the Savoy. Did you see that?
I haven't seen that.
Brilliant. Well worth a watch.
So
yes.
behind the scenes of the hotel.
Yeah, it was really interesting. It opened in 1889. It was the first hotel in the world to offer room service, and it had the first one to have electricity inside, so that was really interesting. I learned something.
Yeah, these kind of fly on the wall things. Remember one of the very first of those was behind the scenes of the Adelphi in Liverpool.
Yes.
This must be about 20 years ago now. And who was the maitre d', like the head waiter? And didn't he used to say, "Just cook, will you?" Which became a bit of a catchphrase at the time. But that was one of the first, the Adelphi. So the Savoy, Channel 5 was
Channel
that,
5
right?
it was, yeah. So it'll be on My 5.
As we say, we
Oh,
like
yeah.
a good documentary, and lots of good royal documentaries on Demand 5 at the moment. They've been repeating some documentaries they did about how suppliers and shops and so forth get royal approval, because, you often hear this, don't you? Oh, by royal approval. And actually, how do they meet those standards? So there's some more good stuff on Channel 5. But as we are heading towards a bank holiday weekend, lots of stuff you might be watching. I don't think the weather's amazing, is it, for the weekend? Not as good as it was over Easter.
Not like Easter, no, definitely
That's
not.
it. So you might fancy a box set or two. So on Netflix, there's some really good movies. Mamma Mia's on there, Notting Hill, loads of those sort of, rom-com movies, feel-good kind of things. So if you fancy that, plenty there. If you fancy something fairly miserable, I don't know if you saw this, as if Line of Duty isn't sort of, miserable and on your seat enough. Do you remember Broken? It was a drama on BBC
Yes.
One 2 years ago, and it starred Sean Bean as a guilt-ridden Catholic priest. And if you saw it, I don't know if you agree with me, Christy, but I thought it was absolutely stunning.
Mm-hmm. Very good. He's such an excellent actor, and he can seem to sort of turn his hand to most things. But when he's doing something that is intense and sort of challenging, he's just at his absolute best then, isn't he?
Well, this drama was written by Jimmy McGovern, who was responsible for Cracker and some other very sort of heavy-hitting dramas. And he's not known for being cheery, is Jimmy McGovern. In fact, this was utterly miserable in places, Broken, but such a good watch. A 6-part drama about Sean Bean as this Catholic priest and having to sort of guide his flock, and they have all their trials and tribulations. And actually, some of the best performances I've ever seen. There were a couple of scenes in Broken that I still clearly remember now. They were just so good. So that's on Netflix, the entire series, if you fancy watching that.